Welcome back to Man the Helm podcast. It has been a hot minute and a bunch of lame excuses on my end as far as why that didn't happen. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but let's go ahead and knock out some housekeeping real quick. If you guys are listening to this on whatever platform you are, if you guys can review the podcast, like it, comment, share it with a friend. That goes way further than you could ever imagine. If you're watching this on any other media, go ahead and drop me a sub if you like this kind of content. Same thing, like, comment, bell icon so you get notified of all that. Same old for all the other social medias. If you guys like what I do, consider, following along and see what I got. But enough of this today. I got an awesome guest for you guys. One heck of a comeback episode. So let's get into today's interview with Robert Baker. Welcome back to Man the Helm podcast. Been a hot minute since we did an episode, but brought you guys an awesome guest today. Mr. Robert Baker, how's it going, sir?
Dude, doing great. How are you, man?
I'm fantastic, dude. It's one of those things where I'm up in Clarksville, Tennessee, so I'm just close enough to drive to Nashville whenever I need to do stuff, whether it's events, whether it's gigging, whether it's whatever it is. And one of the reasons my wife and I decided not to leave here is because, shows like the Amigos Guitar Show and different other stuff like that, I get to run into awesome people like yourself and we get to hang out from time to time. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to leave this area. So
yeah, I mean, it's such a cool spot. And I was getting ready to comment on your Tone Central Station t-shirt.
Yeah, dude, Jamie and I used to, he used to work, he was the general manager at Sam Ash in India he worked at.
Okay.
So him and I kind of go way back. So.
Yeah, I only know Jamie from Tone Central, but
yeah,
he's awesome. Just a good dude.
Well, and I'm super happy because when Sam Ash kind of went under, I was really worried about what he was going to do because like he is so good in that role as far as selling, creating an awesome environment and stuff like that. And then, a few years down the line, he's like, hey, man, I'm thinking about opening a shop in East Nashville. I'm like, yes, do it, man. Do it. So,
yeah.
It's pretty rad.
And it's a cool shop, too.
Yeah.
Is the thing. They've got cool. I think we went there the second.
Okay.
I think it was the second day they were open. And I bought I actually, a whole different story. I got this. Someone else bought it. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need that pedal.
Right.
And luckily, my buddy Derek, he's like, all right, you can have it for what I paid for it.
There you go. Well, hey, man, that's the good part about having friends in the guitar community because we can kind of go back and forth. Speaking of friends in the guitar community, I bought that Rev D20 off of RJ for a heck of a deal just because I knew some people. And somebody's like, oh, I think RJ Ranjulio is getting rid of a D20 if you want one. I'm like, yes, I do want one, actually.
Yeah, you were getting that at the Amigo show when we ran into each other, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, because then RJ, I saw RJ a little bit later.
Yeah. But once again, man, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to leave this area because there's so many cool people around. There's so many cool shops around. There's so many different opportunities just to be a musician, and not in the typical capacity of just playing on the Broadway thing. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
So,
well, yeah, even in kind of the stuff like what we're doing with like podcast or YouTube and all that. I mean, there's still not a lot of guys around here who really do that. I mean, I think, I'd say since, Book started doing it, a lot more people have jumped into that realm. But still, not a lot here. So as much, music and stuff as there is here, not a lot of guys who've done it. I mean, even whenever I started doing stuff with the shop here in town, Glaziers, and they were like, no one's even ever asked us to do this. I'm like, really? Like, no one's asked to like record any of this stuff? They're like, nope. And I'm like, I'm your guy.
Yeah, I'm the go-to now. So here you go. I'm just going to go ahead and shoehorn my way right in here right now.
Yeah, I mean, and they've been great. I mean, I've become friends with Joe and Nick and Adam down there and Char. I mean, all of them. I feel bad not naming someone, Clayton and Aaron, but I mean, they're just. It's like quintessential Nashville to me, you know? So.
Well, and for people that might not know, I've been following you on YouTube for quite a while, but you weren't always down here. This is pretty recent still, as far as the
Correct.
move, you know. What was kind of the thing that kind of spurred that on?
Well, do you want the long answer or like the
Hey, dude,
Reader's Digest?
we're podcasting, man. We're here for the long answers,
All
dude.
right, I've got you all right where I want you. No, it was a lot of different stuff. So, it the whole idea of moving to Nashville kind of came up as a little bit of a joke that I just said to my wife, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." That's kind of like the
Right.
short answer. The long answer was my son was in a school where it only went up to a certain grade, and then he was going to have to transition to another school. Regardless of if we stayed in Ohio, he was going to have to go to a new school. And the air we lived in a great area, but kind of the area around it was getting not so great. And we were kind of like seeing the writing on the wall. It's like, I think we need to get out of this part of town. And so again, we were going to be moving no matter what. And I was like, yeah, we should move to Nashville. And then she was like, yeah, why not? And I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, right.
And then, because in all honesty, like I knew more people even before I moved here. I already knew more people in Nashville than I did in Ohio, and I lived Ohio my whole life.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I was like, for me, there was like zero transition. I was just like, oh, these are the people I talk to, and like if we go to NAMM or whatever, like I'm around them anyways.
Right.
And I've been lucky enough to make more friends, since being down here, and it's a very welcoming community, which is the best part.
Yeah, for sure, man. I always think it's funny when you hear the ask of like, hey, I'm a musician, I want to move to a music city, where should I go? You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, that completely 100% depends on you and what you're trying to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people have it conflated with different ideas of being a musician. And that's why I like having people like yourself on, where it's not just going down and grinding it out on Broadway and becoming an old jaded, musician after 20 years of trying to play cover songs for everybody. You know what I mean? There are so many different facets to being in the quote unquote music industry. And regardless of what you're doing, this is one of the best cities to kind of do it all as far as it goes.
It really is. And, with, as technology is advanced and all that kind of stuff, it's putting so much power in the musician's hands,
Yeah.
really, is what it's done. Because, I mean, when I was in school, my senior project, which I've talked about this on my channel before, was I wanted to be a session guitarist. That was like my absolute dream, So I did a report on guys like Tim Pierce, Michael Landau, Steve Lukather, Dan Huff, like all those guys. That was pre-YouTube and all that. Like YouTube literally, maybe it existed, but it was like very early. I mean, I've been like 2008. So
sure. Okay.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
YouTube. But now it's like, oh, there's all these different avenues. Like you can be a teacher, which is still what I would consider myself. I'm just a guitar teacher, but you can reach people around the world. And think about that. Like 20 years ago, you had Skype and stuff like that, but you didn't have a platform to really reach anyone to try to get to those people. Now through YouTube or Instagram and TikTok and all this kind of stuff, you can reach those people and you could build an online, like if you wanted to do, well, I don't think Skype's still a thing. I think they shut that down. Whatever,
Yeah.
Zoom.
Sure.
You could do one-on-one Zoom lessons with people. And I know a lot of guys who do that and, and they're happy to do it. So it's, yeah, like you move here and it's like, there's a lot more options than just Broadway. You can do the Broadway thing for sure, which I think it's very competitive down there, honestly. But I'm not part of that scene, so I can't like speak on it confidently. But yeah, this is kind of the place I feel probably even more so than like LA and stuff like that, because it's small. Nashville's very small, and LA is very spread out. I don't know much about New York to comment on that, but like you said, you run into people constantly here, and at the same time, you won't see someone for like 8 months, and then you're like, oh, like how you been, man? So It's yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic that's inside of Nashville.
For sure. And I like how you said that it's small because I think people from looking out from the periphery of it, they think that this is like this impossible, like gate kept thing that, you know, it's impossible to get into. And I'm like, dude, even just on the online community, like if you're talking about just guitar players, it's such a small subset of even just the United States. You know what I mean? Not even
Yep.
talk worldwide. You know what I mean? And the thing that I really the thing that really bugs me when I hear people about wanting to get started or doing stuff like this, it's just too oversaturated. There's already this guy that does this. There's already this guy that
Mm-hmm.
has this YouTube channel. There's already this guy. There's already these plethora of people that teach. Like, yes, there are, but no one's seen you do it. There might
Totally.
be something that you say, a sentence, a phrase, just the way that you phrase something that just sparks that something for somebody in that lesson or whatever, a gear review, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? I've just never understood that. I think it's kind of like timid, almost unconfidence about, yourself as an individual, about taking that first little step to get into
Yeah.
it.
You've got to be in the mindset of like, oh, I have something to offer into this. Like, I'm gonna do it, and it's kind of like the failure is not an option situation. You just you have to approach it that way. That's the only way. Because if you're, I don't know, if it's like if you're not betting on yourself, then why would anybody else?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you
Well,
know,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was going to comment. You said earlier that you consider yourself more so like a teacher, which I definitely agree with. But what really captivates me with most of your videos is your way of like storytelling and navigating, whether it's a lesson, whether it's a gear demo. Like it's something that I always want to keep watching it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
that's cool.
It's not just a, hey, this is this cool lick. This is how you play it. You know what I mean? Like you
Check
go
out this lick.
right. You know what I mean? It's not the regurgitated like 60-second clip what you see on TikTok or Instagram of just like
Mm,
some shred thing. There's
yeah.
so much good context. The way that you navigate the actual story of the video, like I said, regardless if it's a gear, whether it's a lesson, whatever it may be, that's one thing that's always captivated me about like watching your videos and stuff like that.
Oh well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I mean, I th- if anything, kind of like attributes to that. I think it's because I always love learning, and it's like my most overused word, but like the concept of the lick is always what is the most fascinating thing to me. It's not just about like, well, you can play this lick really fast or something like that. It's like, okay, what's happening here? What made me like the way that this sounded? I was just doing a live thing on Instagram, and someone asked how to develop your phrasing. And I
Mm.
always think that's like an interesting question because it's like, well, it's from all the people that you've studied and learned their licks from, but I really think it comes down to more of like the little details inside of what you learn from them. So I referenced like an Eddie solo from the Can't Stop Loving You, and I'm like, oh, you typically you learn a solo and you're like, cool, I got the solo down, and then as you listen to it more and more, you hear like little tiny details inside of it that you're like, oh, I didn't realize Eddie's swelling the volume a little bit more on that last one. And there's like this tiny little bit of like vibrato on it. And then it's like, oh, he hits that last note and it sounds like maybe he's dipping the bar a little bit, And I think that those are the little things that end up creating your phrasing at the end of the day. Cause you kind of like log that stuff away subconsciously. And then, before you know it, you're playing something. You're like, oh, maybe I'll just hit the bar a little bit on this one note. And then, you know, hopefully people are like, that's cool. What'd you do there? And it's like, oh, this is this Eddie Van Halen thing I learned. So
Right. Well, dude, it's no secret to anybody that listens or watches me, dude. I practice at the altar of Andy Wood. He is everything that I want to be as a guitar player. I mean,
and he's phenomenal.
and that's one of those key things where it's like learning some of these tunes, it's like, okay, yeah, it's one thing to get the lick down or to get the song down, but then
Mm-hmm.
I find myself here in the past probably year, like you said, really deep diving into the small little intricacies that happen in his playing that makes Andy
Totally.
Andy. and I don't think, I think it takes a little bit of a level of playing maturity to get to that point. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you can just like hop right into. I teach a few people here at a local mom and pop shop up here, and
Oh, nice.
I think it's one of those things where I haven't been able to get that across super well because a lot of the people I have are younger. They're anywhere from 10 to 15, 16, somewhere in there. And I think that the basic fundamentals aren't quite there yet. But I think
Mm-hmm.
once you start to really, like you said, deep dive into whether it be an artist or just a particular song,
Right.
you really start to, your ear gets refined to like, okay, now I know that lick. I've heard it a billion times. I don't need to worry about that. The muscle memory's there. I know how to play it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, oh, I didn't hear that part before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's constant. You hear little things inside of the solos, and maybe it's excitement because when you're learning it, you're like, oh, I got the lick down.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
whenever you listen more, kind of like take a step back, you're like, oh, he's doing like, I mean, C. Bray Vaughan's a great one that adds all these kind of little subtleties into his playing. And Andy's a great one. All the Andys,
Yeah, all the Andes.
Summers,
Yes.
Timmons,
Yes. Yeah.
Wood. You can go through all of them. But Andy, what I always like, I love when a player has something that, for me, I pick up and notice right away. And I always thought Andy, I mean, obviously he has incredible picking chops and,
Yes.
just terrifying, but he slides in and out of notes really interestingly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always something I noticed about him. And it's the same, like, when I got to do an interview with Dan Huff, and I asked him about his bending. I always thought his bending, the way he has a fast, like, people bend differently. Some people, you have like Angus style bending, which is pretty fast. Like, he gets to the note very quickly. And some people have more like the swoop to their bending.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and again, that's the little things that you start noticing about players, and you're like, oh, that's a really interesting way of bending to that note. It's not the same. So when people say like vibrato and stuff is one of the most, like, one of your most unique traits on guitar, it's like, it really is, because when you listen to it real closely, you start to hear the differences of George Lynch to Angus Young, to Zach Wilde, obviously, but yeah, to me that stuff is just fascinating for me on guitar.
Well, and I think it's one of those things, like, I don't get me wrong, I love gear, I love chasing tones, I love trying to get different things down and achieving different things. But I think that's one of the problems that we start to run into. It's like, once again, I think it's comes with a certain level of maturity where you break out of that. If I just have this amp, I'll sound like this, or if I just get this guitar, I'll be like that. You know what I mean? But then realizing the reason why maybe you're not quite sounding exactly like the individual is because of those subtle reasons that you're just not really going to achieve. It'd be the same
Yeah.
thing as trying to look at two different fingerprints at that point, even just with your
Right.
vibrato.
Yeah. And that's a great way of putting it too. Yeah. I mean, it's everyone's different. There's all these different little subtleties into it. So I don't know. Those are the nerdy things that I like about guitar.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm saying I like the shred stuff too, but to me, those little things are always fascinating.
Yeah, well, the shred stuff is the cool superhero stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's the part of us guitar players. If we get our 15 seconds on a stage or on a video, that's our moment. You know what I mean? Where we get to show off.
Give it everything you got.
That's right. But at the same time, I do love I did hop on one of your lives the other night, and you brought up something really interesting. I think you were practicing your sweep picking, and you said something like, I really like the slow, not slow, but the more like methodical sweeping, right? When it
Yeah.
starts to sound like a video game, that's when I'm turned off from it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. And I
Yeah.
started thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? That is 100% right. Because the second it just sounds like beep boops and computer noises, I'm just like, whatever, man. But
Yeah.
there's something like a lot of like really cool like sass and flavor that happens with these like really methodical lines that end up coming out of sweep picking.
Totally. And one of my favorite guys who incorporates arpeggios and like the way I wish I could so bad is Doug Rappaport. Have you ever watched him?
Yeah.
He does it, and he'll do them pretty quick. They never, like, it never turns into Nintendo metal, but
Right.
it but he's so tasteful. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's always the narrative of people like, shred, sweeping, there's no feel. And I was like, dude, like he played that arpeggio at the perfect moment. Like, how does that not feel? Like it was, I don't know. It was such a build up and exciting moment in the solo.
Yeah.
I'm like, a bend wouldn't have been the right move there, in my opinion. Like, it needed that. He matched what was happening, and it's like that's why I think being able to play fast and all that stuff is just a tool. It's a tool in the tool belt to where it's like you can use it. The issue is probably, sometimes when people develop that tool, it's, the only one that they use instead of all the others too. But it always gets lumped into this like shred has no feel. And I'm just like, dude, there's tons of feel in it. And some of the shredder guys have the best vibrato. I mean, they look like Ingve, incredible vibrato. Tell me he doesn't have feel when he does that stuff. So,
Well, and like you kind of alluded to, they're playing for the song, man. They're
mm-hmm.
not playing to shred. They're playing the right part for the song.
Yeah,
And if that's not feel, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? Like you're listening to the music that's being played, and you're playing what needs to happen over that. It's the same thing as session guys when they write a part. They're listening to it. They're like, okay, what would be good here? And usually it's usually that gut instinct, that first take or second, you know what I mean? Of this is what it is.
totally.
So I get the sentiment, but it's also one of those, I feel like it's stuck in your ways sort of mentality where it's this is what I like, and I'm not going to listen to anything else. All this other is just garbage, that
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So
Yeah. I don't know. It's such an odd thing because people who don't like shred always feel the need to let you know how much they don't like. I'm like, why? I'm like,
yeah,
it doesn't. You're never gonna change my mind, like ever about it. I absolutely love it if it's done in the right moment and if it's done tastefully and all that kind of stuff. I love it, and and you know, some random person on the internet telling me how much they hate shred because I posted a video called something shred and then they clicked and I'm like, why'd you click on, you don't like shred, why'd you click on the video?
just to get mad, man.
I know.
Just to get mad.
Someone just did that. I did a video with Corey Congilio, who's one
Mhm.
I mean, Corey's one of my favorite people here in town, but also he's one of my favorite teachers because he's so good at it.
Yes.
But someone commented on there and it was just like shred has no soul and all that. I'm like, okay, you clearly don't like shred guitar. Why would you click on a video that he titled like "Can he help me shred"?
Right.
Like, what's the point? Like,
But you know what, man? I guarantee you, if, Corey took some stuff from you and went out and played live and did this like super sick 16 bar run, people would freak out and be like, man, that was amazing.
I know,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
it's so funny. I mean, it's just but that's the internet. That's like the
I
internet
know.
summed
Yeah.
up. Like, let me watch a video I know I won't like and tell you how I don't like it. I'm like,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
job, internet.
Wow. Well, and one thing one thing I really do enjoy with that, like, so for instance, you were hopping back in your live that you did a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's not enough, in my opinion, of showing people that are human anymore when it comes to the instrument. You know what I
Totally.
mean? We don't have this aspect of like, hey, I'm learning how to do this, or I'm relearning how to do this, or I've never really tried it this way before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, and I'm gonna make some mistakes. I'm gonna flub a little bit, and it's all gonna be good because we are kind of, I feel like, exiting this age of perceived perfection online as far as guitar playing goes.
Yeah.
And with the advent of certain guitar controversies that we're not going to I don't really care about talking about, but I think that's kind of the result of it is people want to see stuff that is more authentic, and you
Totally.
probably know better than anybody else. That's really the only way to be successful in this sort of space is being yourself and being authentic. And
Yeah.
I know everybody, I know I do. I make mistakes all the time. It is what it is, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid to show people. Hey, I'm trying to learn, like, especially, I'll post a video, hey, I'm trying to learn this Andy Wood lick. Am I going to play it at tempo 100% right? Nope. I sure am not. It's going to be all over the place and it's going to be messy, but that's the progress part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to be willing to show, the process of it. And I think, you know, for one, who can play Andy Wood licks at speed?
Yeah.
Other than Andy.
I'm working at it, but it's
Yeah.
not going well.
But yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like, I won't get too far into it, but the whole like miming guitar thing that people got really upset about. And I'm like, well, it depends on the situation. Cause
For
like,
sure.
I totally mime guitar parts sometimes on songs. Cause it's like, well, I don't have 8 cameras. Like if you saw 8 camera angles, that's 8 different takes. And I use the best take of the solo. So I'm like, technically that's miming, I suppose, because some of the stuff, because I'm like, if it's visually serving a purpose, because part of YouTube and content creating is a visual aspect to it. So I'm like, I like that side of it as well, like recording stuff, but I'm also a one-man operation and I don't have a team of people with 8 cameras. So
Right.
I'm like, what other option is there to do? I mean, I can't hire a team, spend like $1,000 to make $20 back on YouTube for the video I make. But
For sure.
yeah, so I'm it just seems like a lot of stuff becomes so black and white, and they're like, if you're miming at all, it's trash. It has to be real. I'm like, well, actually, there's some. I treat it more like a music video at that point. I'm like, I don't think CC DeVille switched his guitar 8 times in the Nothing But a Good Time video
Right.
live, like, so yeah. Anyways,
Well, I do agree. It's definitely situational, and you have to think about it like you did, very for the moment, right?
mhm.
And the thing is, and regardless of how people feel about it, and once again, I know it's just random people on the internet, and I'm not trying to throw any shade at anybody, but that is the purpose of YouTube, to be visually appealing and sound good.
Totally.
So how do you achieve that with you, as a human being? You're not going to be able to do 8, 9 takes and have them exactly the same.
No.
So giving a 30-second, little split frame of different angles, I agree. That's 100% not miming, because you definitely played it. What I was more getting at is this, like, completely DI'd, you know, quantized 60-second clip of, like, hey, I can play like this, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
if you ever go see him play in person, it's just like, whoa, hang on a second. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing what I've been seeing. Sort of
Right.
thing.
Which to me is part of the problem, because it all gets lumped in together then.
For sure.
And I'm like, well, it's not just this one melting pot of all the stuff. My favorite video, part of the reason why I even started wanting to do YouTube, were 2 main people. One was Rob Chapman,
Mhm.
because I thought, like, I was like, oh, he had so much personality in the way that he presented his videos, especially early on, like his style of doing stuff. But then it was also Keith Merrow.
Okay, yeah.
I loved how cinematic, how well shot, and I mean, I don't know, because I don't want to speak for Keith in any way, but like, I'm assuming a lot that those different multiple camera angles might have been different takes that he put together. Now he does have a bunch of cameras, so
Sure.
maybe it's not the case with him, but the way that he shot them was very, like, influential and inspiring to me, to the point where I'm like, well, this is the only way that I can get close to this. I don't have a huge space. Like, he has a massive studio where he can set cameras up and do all that stuff. And, Keith is good enough to where he can track it all live and do that stuff. And I'm just like, I don't have the space or the, tools to do that. So this is the route that you have to go.
Yeah. Well, to kind of backtrack just a little bit, now that we've kind of brought that up, what was one of the driving factors that made you kind of want to get into YouTube in the first place, man? I'm sure you've talked about it a million times, but I'm just curious.
Well, a lot of it was Rob Chapman, just because he was kind of goofy,
Right.
and the way he presented himself, and I was like, oh, you can be like you can just be yourself. It felt
Hmm.
like on YouTube, and it didn't feel like you needed to create this character, to be on it. And then it was stuff like Keith, and all that stuff. And I think Rob posted a video at one point, like he got endorsed by like ESP or something like that. And I'm like, whoa, like normal guys can get endorsed by like companies and work with companies and do all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And then, I was just like, well, I like teaching guitar, and maybe I'll just start making lessons. And then like, that was how it all started, because I was already kind of like doing the teaching thing. I had a friend who started playing guitar with me, and I remember I was way more into like the legato and picking all that stuff. And he's like, make me like a practice routine of stuff to practice. So I would like tab out. I'm like, yeah, work on this for like 5 minutes and then work on this for 5 minutes. So without knowing it, I was kind of like already starting the teaching process without knowing
Hmm.
that I was teaching. I was just showing a buddy. I was like, oh yeah, this is the stuff that I worked on.
Yeah.
So yeah. And
Well,
so I think it was just that.
okay. Well, and that mentality we kind of talked about earlier, I think it really plays into a lot whenever we're trying to do something in a creative field, whether it's any sort of art or music or anything like that, of like kind of do or die sort of mentality of like,
Totally.
I'm definitely doing this. Was that always kind of the mindset for you, or did you kind of like slowly ease into that?
Well, originally it was just for fun.
Okay.
Like there
Yep.
was no, like I went to school for media communications, not like college. Like the last 2 years of high school, you could go to like a trade school. Here, Pioneer, shout out Pioneer Tech. Miss Moritz, best media teacher. So I was kind of into like the video editing and audio side from doing that stuff. We actually had a joke because for every project, I would make Dimebag Darrell tribute videos. And it just became this running joke that whatever, like, she would give us some kind of like criteria, like, you need to make, a website about this. So we would do like HTML stuff. I'd make a
Hmm.
Dimebag Darrell
Yeah.
tribute website, and then it's just this whole thing. But so I just did that stuff for fun, and then I just remember people started subscribing and watching, and I would have to borrow my mom's laptop because it had a webcam on it, and that was the only way I knew how to like record videos and stuff. And I remember telling my wife, Gabby, I was like, I really think we can do this. Like, that was when I started like the process of like, no, like I want to do this. Like, I see all these other guys doing this stuff on YouTube, which it was still early on. Like I said, the big guys were Tone King, Gearman
Mm.
Dude,
Yep.
uh, Chappers, obviously, he was probably the biggest. And then guys like Keith Merrow and Ola, and I forget, Pete Thorne was back then too, but it was his old channel name. Was it Stranger in a Strange Land? Whatever his
Oh, okay.
original username
Yep.
was before it was Pete Thorne. But I was just like, yeah, I was like, I can do this. Like, I knew I could, and then I can't think the mindset. And I've always kept this because like some people like won't show you their like cool licks. They're like, no, this is my cool lick. And I was like, I'll come up with a cooler one. I think if that's your mindset, it's like, that lick was cool. I can do better than that. Something like that. So I think that was when all the mindset started of that kind of like approach to it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and going forward from there, I mean, it just kind of transitioned from, like you said, being fun to really focusing on that being your path. Was there like a defining moment where you realized like, oh man, this is really working? Or
Yeah, I think. I mean, there were lots of them. I remember hitting, and I would always encourage everybody like, it's not just about numbers,
right,
stuff
right.
like that. Um, it was whenever I started getting people asking me for lessons
Mm,
through Skype. Like, it's like I was already teaching in person, and I was teaching a lot of in person lessons at a local music store in Ohio called Metronome Music. And then people were asking for Skype, and then like that's when it like that started clicking for me. I'm like, oh, this person in California wants to take a lesson from me. And then before too long, it was like, oh, this guy in Sweden wants to take a lesson from me, and I'm like figuring out time zones and all that kind of
Right.
stuff to do that. So then I was like, oh, this is working. This is like reaching people, and something that I'm saying or doing is connecting with them on the teaching side of it. Everything else, I'm just a bum. But the teaching side of um seemed to resonate, more with people. So I mean, for the longest time, I did 3 or 4 videos a week for years. I mean, 8 years or something. It was like, a ton of content output, which is what I always encourage everyone to do. Is like, you just got to start making videos, and eventually you start developing. Hopefully, you develop whatever your thing is going to be. And in the beginning phase, like, you're super awkward and uncomfortable on a camera, and you don't know how to talk to a camera, because that's a whole learning experience.
Yeah.
Is it's like, how do you talk to the camera like it's a person? Because there's people on the other side listening to you. So you are talking to people, but they're not here with you. So it's like a really weird dynamic that you have to learn. And my wife used to always make fun of me and said I had such a camera voice. She's like, say it normal. Why do you say it with such a camera voice? I'm like, I'm trying. I'm like, it's weird, So it took years to do that, but.
Well, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier with phrasing on guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got to get the reps in and get that maturity down to find your thing and get in your groove. You know what I mean? It's not something that just happens, because it's a very unnatural thing just to have a camera just looking back at you and you're like, hey guys, we're going to learn how to do this today. You know what I mean? And now I got to figure out how this is going to be perceived afterwards. And then I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you've been in the same boat, where I've edited videos and I'm just like, well, that's trash. I got to start that over again, or I got to retake that, or like, dude, I can't put that out. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So I've talked to, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He, to be fair, he's a little bit of a interesting guy, kind of pessimistic a little bit, which is fine. I'm not saying anything bad about him. He's a good guy. But one of the things he brought up, he always pokes fun at me, or anybody in kind of the friend group that I have right now of creating music and doing stuff like that, is like, oh, it's just oversaturated. Oh, it's just oversaturated. That's all I ever hear, dude. And I'm just like, this is like the best time to do it, dude.
Yeah.
You have everything available to you. You're not like Robert Baker stealing his mom's laptop, having a webcam. That's the only way you can do it. You can literally do everything right here, just off your phone. Literally. You don't need anybody to give you anything like gear related. If you have a smartphone, you are capable of putting out any content that you need to.
I mean, Tom Bukovac is a great example.
Exactly.
He uses his phone for all of that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, tell me his content isn't great.
Right.
Tell me it's not incredible and insightful for a musician of his caliber to, even talk about the stuff that he talks about. Like, we're lucky,
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And, like, to me, the proof is, like, anybody who's asked me about starting YouTube and all that stuff, I usually tell them it's the three P's, and you have to have at least 2 of them.
Okay.
I at least in my opinion, but again, who am I? But it's, you have to have personality, production, and playing. And I genuinely feel like it's in that order of importance. Playing is actually probably the least important aspect,
for sure,
in of the 3. So if you have personality in playing, you're good. If you have personality in production, but maybe you're not the best player, you're also good. If you have playing and really good production, and maybe you don't even talk in your videos, like you don't, so the personality aspect isn't there. Like, all of them are important, and ideally, if you can have all 3, that's like, that's the trifecta. That's the combo.
Right.
But I mean, that's what you got to do with it, though. It's like, just being a great player, I don't think is enough.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it ever has been enough. When we look back at the heroes of old, the superstars, the rock stars and whatnot, they had that charisma, they had that sass, they had that showmanship. Like, yes, they were amazing players, but that's not all they were.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're just in a slightly different time frame where we have to utilize technology on top of that. So there was never a point where you were just a great player. You know, even if you harp back all the way to if we went to like Robert Johnson, he was singing about stuff that nobody was singing about, and it was very edgy for the time.
Right.
Like I think people don't realize that yes, being a great player to be in this sort of place is a plus for sure, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot at the end of the day because everybody is good.
Yeah, everyone's good. I mean, and the caliber of players that are out there is like staggering. You know,
Yeah,
like they're so good. Because I mean, by no means am I a great player. Uh, you know, but I'm confident in the way that I play, and I'm, you know, confident that I want to continue to try to get better. You know, but you know, I don't. You look at TikTok, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. You see these phenomenal players, and a lot of them don't talk in their videos, but the videos look really good or really cool angles and all that stuff.
exactly.
I'm like,
Yep.
there's the production aspect of
Yep.
it. You know,
Yep.
I'm like, it's got to be two. Very rarely can anybody like do just one. And, you know, and like I said, with Tom, I mean, phenomenal player, you know, amazing personality, designed. I mean, like so good on camera. And then production, it's like, well, it's almost, it's like anti-production in like a really
For
cool
sure.
way, you
Yeah.
know, because I'm like, so he kind of does have that one as well, because it's production, but of a different kind of like style or something like
Yeah.
that. So,
Well, no, I 100% agree, man. I mean, that breaking it down into those three categories makes a lot of sense, and that's an easier thing to strive for
mm-hmm.
because you can learn how to have good angles and edits. You can start to develop, like getting those reps in as far as talking in front of camera to have like that personality or just being yourself. Like I don't know. I think people, and they've always done this, is they put individuals on pedestals and the comparison thief of joy sort of mentality of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm just not going to be able to do this because of X, Y, and Z. It's like,
Yeah,
well, it's the same thing with any of these great players or great people that you see or you follow online or whatever it is. It's like they have those exact same feelings too all the time. Like
totally.
it's not just a you thing, you know what I mean? I don't want to sound insensitive or anything, but everybody has those levels of insecurity at some point or
Totally.
continuously, you know.
Well, and you know, you mentioned like how saturated it is now, and it is. You know, like to be fair, I don't envy channels trying to break into, you know, YouTube or Instagram or any of that stuff right now. But at the same breath, it's like it's never going to be less saturated. Like in
Exactly.
another year, it's going to be thousands of more people involved in the community, and it's like, and they're just starting out. So what if, you know, in that year, who knows how many followers, subscribe, you know, whatever your goal is, you could have, and it just keeps going on. Like I have a guy who I was helping with some YouTube stuff, and he just texted me, and he was like, "Dude, I did this. It's working. It's happening." I'm like, "I told you, dude." I go, "You have to stick it out." There's the first couple years. Another person who I had helped was like, you know, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna start YouTube. First year, I want to have like 5,000 subscribers." And I'm like, I was like, "Man, it took me like 3 or 4 years to get
Right.
that many subscribers." And you know, they slowly, like after about 6 months, you know, suddenly they quit uploading, they stopped. I go, "I told you, dude, it is a grind." And if you're with YouTube in particular, you play guitar far less than what I think people might think you do.
100%.
There's not a lot of playing. It's you work on whatever you're gonna play for the video, and you spend more time editing than you do playing, for sure. I mean, like I spend more time watching myself play guitar in a video than I actually get to play guitar myself. So if you don't like the editing and production side of stuff, then it's going to be a rough road, because it's, that's the biggest part of most of it.
Yeah.
So
No, dude, I have barely just dipped my toes into the world of YouTube here recently, and it was one of those things I knew, but I obviously hadn't experienced. And that's the thing. I remember my wife coming and talking to me. I came down to eat dinner with them, and she's like, "What are you doing right now? I haven't heard you playing at all." I said, "No, I finished playing the video parts about 2 hours, 3 hours ago.
yeah.
Just editing down all the audio and all the video right now, and make sure my cuts look good and all that good stuff. Like it's one of those things too. Like from an outside perspective, we see the finished product of a lot of these super polished, sweet looking videos,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you said, when you see like this guy, he's getting free stuff from Sweetwater, he's getting free stuff from this company or free stuff. It's like, it's not free, man. It's
No.
not. It's a exchange of services right now. I'm getting a product for an exchange of a service. Like it's a transaction, man. It's not just like, oh man, we really really like Robert Baker, here is every guitar in our line. No.
And you have to do nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Don't worry about it, man. Just keep them, hang on to them. If you feel like sometime want to make a video, just go ahead and do that, man. But no pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's another thing with the world of YouTube, is they're like, you get everything for free, and it's like, your time's not free. It's the same way you hire a contractor to build your house, or to build a porch or something like that. It's like, well, you pay him probably in money, and,
Yeah.
but you're also paying for his experience of like, hey, he's been doing it for 30 years. He's good at what he does, versus like, okay, or you could pay the guy who's done it for 2 months, and like, he'll do it for free for 2 months. It's like,
Right.
that's not the way it works. So, a lot of times whenever you work with a company, it's stuff, it's like, well, we've also put a lot of time and money into this. I mean, there was a lot of times where, me and Gabby were broke, but like we pumped our money into cameras and lights. And I mean, our old studio was like half painted. We ran out of, way back, it has like a red wall on it. I was like, we ran out of paint, so we only painted half the room, the angle that the camera was. And it was always funny, because then the other half of the room was like white, and the other side was, it was like, we ran out of paint and we didn't have any money to buy paint. Well, but it was like, always believed that it's like, it will pay off in the long run, with all this stuff. So, and if you believe in that and you put in the work, and it takes 10 years, whatever it is, it's like, yeah, then maybe companies will send you stuff in exchange for videos, or give you discounts, or depending on what the agreement is. I mean, sometimes with Sweetwater, it's like, hey, I want to give this guitar away, can I get one? And they're like, sure. And then I make a video about the guitar and we give it away to someone.
Yeah.
People don't
Yeah.
complain about those videos, though.
No. Well, once again, man, I think it's one of those things, like I kind of said earlier. It looks big from the outside, but really it's not. It's just putting in the work, proving yourself, and eventually people are going to, come and either be fans of you that support you in that way, or companies are going to take notice of you and want to work with you. But the whole like overnight success is usually followed by like 10 years of grinding it out.
Totally. Yeah.
So
real overnight.
You know what I mean? Or you find a way to put 10 years worth of work into like 4 years.
Yeah.
And you just completely bury yourself.
Yeah.
So, that's what has to happen.
Totally. You have to, it's just all in at the end of the day. Like it has to be that mentality.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you're only half in, then you get half results. So
yeah, and like I said, I've kind of just started dipping my toes, but here recently, posting, like flooding the internet with content, I have seen a dramatic growth. Like, it's crazy. You put more in, you get more out. It's the same as anything else that you do in life, man.
What a concept.
I know, right? It's wild. And, stop making silly excuses about why you can't do whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
But, well, Robert, we're about at the end of the episode. So you've given a lot of solid advice to people, I feel like. But anybody that might be listening, last little bit of like words of wisdom or something like that, where if they're struggling to do something in this sort of creative space, what's like a key point or I guess like an elevator pitch would be the correct term for the old school guys of, what they need to do.
I think part of it is you can have big goals. Goals are important, but you also need to have like obtainable ones along the way to kind of keep you motivated. Because if you just go into it and you're like, I want to get free stuff, or something like that, it's like, well, maybe if that's your goal, stuff was never necessarily my goal, that side of it. But it's just kind of like, okay, well, maybe you want to work with a string company. That was the first company I ever worked with. They made strings, and then it's like, okay, maybe I work with a guitar pick company, next. Like, have little milestones along the way to carry you to your big goals, because it really does make a big difference, and so much of it's just mindset.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, dude, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I had a great conversation, dude.
Dude, thanks for having me. I know it's taken way too long to make this
Oh,
with my
dude,
schedules.
dude, listen, man, I tell the same thing to everybody. If you're working full time in this sort of environment,
Mhm.
like you are insanely busy. There is no need to apologize, man. I 100% know how busy it can get. Dude, even just like the sheer volumes of comments and DMs, I understand how stuff can slip through the cracks, man. It's no big deal at all,
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
dude, I appreciate you having me on.
Well,
So,
yeah, man. Oh, of course, dude. But listeners, that's going to wrap up today's episode with Robert. Hope you guys got some value out of this, and we will check all of you guys on the next episode. Peace.